if you're an outdoor lighting entrepreneur, you own a business, and you're trying to evaluate where you're at, systems, processes, people-wise. When you look at that, what you're trying to see is like, one, do you want to grow? You know, there is some truth to like, you either grow or die. But, you know, if you're content with where you're at in a stage in business, you know, then you can kind of hone in and just kind of perfect the, you know, the systems and processes and people that you have in place, you know, and just try and, you know, small little incremental changes, make them better. But you're not going to grow that way. So if you're intent on growing, what you need to be looking at is like when you first start out and you're a solopreneur, you're 100,000, like you have to start looking at like, how am I going to delegate? I think the $100,000 person, they get confused on profitability. They working hard. I did $100,000 in sales and I took home 60,000. You're like, I had $60,000 in profit. No, you didn't. You were providing the rent, you were providing the labor, you were providing the insurance, you were providing the car, and you start listing out all of those things, which, you know, in theory, like the entrepreneur should have been writing a invoice to the company to pay for those things. And then when you get done with that, you realize, okay, it's like, oh, well, I actually lost money, you know? And it's not bad. I mean, they really did make $60,000. It's just when you start to try to grow, you start going, oh, well, if I hire that person, they'll cost $40,000. And now I'm only gonna make 20. So it gets a little difficult because they really, like in reality, they were probably in that 6, 7, 8, 10% profit margin in that $100,000 business. In your outdoor lighting business, you might have an installer, you might have somebody that's helping with bookkeeping and answering the phones and kind of running the processes in the back office. But you're kind of getting stuck because you're like, okay, well, you might be making, you know, $100,000, paying all these other people, but then you can't, the thought of trying to grow, it's like, well, you have to invest in marketing. So, you know, you need to be laying out 10, 20% of your gross revenue to push for growth. And this is where being capitalized becomes important. So if you're a $300,000 business, like my rule of thumb for you is that in your lighting business, you should try and shoot for 5 to 10% in cash for operating. So if you're a $300,000 business, you should have $30,000 cash on hand to kind of cover your expenses. And if you could get up to 20, makes it a lot easier to make that hire, bring on somebody new, try something new because you're capitalized. If you're pulling all the money out as much as you can, it makes it really hard to grow. You know, business growth is driven by capital invested.